We're gathered in 770 because the Rebbe talks to the women. As I'm sure you all know, the Rebbe spoke to the women 3 times a year. Once before Shavuos, but it wasn't directly before Shavuos, it was a little bit earlier, because it was connected to, it was called the Spring Convention of Neshey Chabad, which took place, I guess, after Lag BaOmer. As we all know, as soon as the Rebbe became Rebbe, the Rebbe started 2 very radical organizations. 2 ideas that traditionally were not part of the paradigm of Haredi Jews, and from the very first day the Rebbe made them into Ikarim, important. The first was Tzeirei Agudas Chabad. The Rebbe wanted young people who are still alive and have a lot of energy and they're not afraid of taking risk to take a leading role in the work of Lubavitch. And the second was Agudas Neshey Chabad. As soon as the Rebbe became Rebbe, he made it very clear that in a way that's correct, api Torah and api halacha, as far as tznius and so forth, women should lead. Women should lead. And yonim that have to do with women should be run by women. And when the Rebbe established Agudas Neshei Chabad in Eretz Yisrael, in America, in Canada, in Australia, so the Rebbe suggested, or it was encouraged, that the women should get together periodically to discuss the progress of these activities. And it included 2 conventions, one in the winter, which took place in Arei Asada, and one in the spring, which always took place in New York, in Crown Heights. And each year during this convention, which was, I guess, a Thursday, a Friday, a Shabbos, and a Sunday, the Rebbe spoke to the women. In addition, at the end of the school year, the Rebbe spoke to the graduates, Talmidas HaMesayimos. Officially, the talk that the Rebbe spoke to the graduates was only for graduates. That means 8th grade and then 12th grade of Beis Rivka. But when the graduates no longer fit into the Rebbe's room and they needed a larger space, so in that schus, the Fabrengen, the talk that the Rebbe gave to women, became open to all the women and girls. It was at the end of the school year. There were 2 parts to this meeting. It was a meeting about the idea that when you finish, it's not an end chas v'shalom, but it's the beginning of something new. And it was also a charge for the girls who were going away to camp, and the obligation and the responsibility and the opportunity that going to camp included. And the 3rd time of the year that Rebbe speaks to women is before Rosh Hashono. At the end of Elul, depending on the calendar, whatever date it was, the Rebbe spoke to all the women as the preparation for Rosh Hashono. In each of these talks, they have Rebbe trademarks. The Rebbe trademarks are, first of all, an unconditional love, an anashir brachas without an end. As we go to the new year, everybody has a need and a desire for all kinds of brachas from the Eibishter, and the Rebbe gives and gives and gives and gives. There's a film that I saw, the Rebbe standing outside of his room, Erev Rosh Hashono, and he was giving brachas, and he's closing his door, and as he's closing his door, he turns his head back, gives some more brachas. The Rebbe gives brachas on Ashir. And before Rosh Hashono, the Rebbe met the women, and he gave Neshey Chabad a bracha for the new year. But of course, the Rebbe doesn't just give. The Rebbe's brachas are Yiddish brachas, and not lahadol, not Yiddish brachas. And Yiddish brachas, as we know, the Rebbe brings always from the Zohar, Nitaka chinam. In Klipa, there's chinam. And the opposite of Kedusha, chinam. Chinam means things are for free. In Kedusha, everything has a cost. Not it has a cost because the Eibishter likes to charge. Not it has a cost because the Eibishter likes to test us or make things hard for us. It has a cost because this is the only way it has value. If somebody gives away something for nothing, the recipient has no appreciation for it. The Rebbe said this in so many sichos. The Eibishter doesn't like Nahama de Kisufa, a bread of shame. In the Eishes Chayil, it's called Lechem Atzlus. Feile Breut. The Eibusher doesn't like lazy bread. Lazy bread is not tasty. The value of the bread is because of the avodah. So the Rebbe gives brachas and brachas and brachas and brachas and brachas. And at the same time, the Rebbe has a tviyah. He wants, he expects, he wants for us to give of ourselves to the kavanah, to the purpose, as individual people, as heads of households, as leaders of communities, as people who have an influence on the whole world. The brachas, it's not chas v'shalom that if you don't do the work, you don't get the bracha. If you don't do the work, the bracha doesn't have the same meaning. It doesn't have the same value. So before Rosh Hashono, the Rebbe gives women brachas, and along with the brachas comes a hisaydidus, an inspiration, a demand. So we're here because the Rebbe is here. We're here because the Rebbe is present. Nobody has any doubt about that. And the Rebbe is giving brachas on Ashir. Unfortunately, the voice of the Rebbe, to hear the voice of the Rebbe, you have to have very special ears. And perhaps there are people here who have that chus. So they put a person to come and give a talk. But all of us understand this is not about the person giving a talk or the whatever else is done to create a sense of a meeting. It's the Rebbe. The Rebbe is here and the Rebbe is giving brachas, and that's the only thing that really is of any significance. It's the only thing that's of any significance. That's why you're here. Nobody came to hear a speech from this person and the other person. We came to Beis Chayenu, because from here our chayes comes, our life comes, and the Rebbe gives brachas on Ashir. And that's how we appreciate this evening. That's how we appreciate this evening. I want to share a thought. This year's Hakel. I said, somebody pointed out to me that in this year you end up reading Vayelech twice. Last year, Vayelech was after Rosh Hashono. This year, Vayelech is before Rosh Hashono. So Shnas Hakel opens with Hakel and it closes. Vayakel, the mitzvah of Hakel is in Parshas Vayelech. So we started the year Miketz Sheva Shonim B'nei Shnas Hashmita Hakel Es Hom, and in Shul this past Shabbos we read again Hakel. The year opened with Hakel and closed with Hakel. What's Hakel? What's Hakel? Hakel is Anoshim Noshim V'Taf. That's Hakel. Hakel is Anoshim Noshim V'Taf. Men, women, and children. The whole inyan of Hakel is that it neutralizes the differences between Yidden. There are many in Yonim, in Yiddishkeit, that everybody's different. Men have their avoida, women have their avoida, children have their avoida. And in addition, there's different kinds of men. Like the Rashi brings in the Chumash from the Gemara, that Moshe Rabbeinu taught Torah first to Aaron, and then he taught Torah to Elazar v'Isamar, then he taught Torah to the Zkenim, and then he taught Torah. There's different madregas. Everybody has a different job. Hakel, everybody's the same. Because Hakel is like Har Sinai. Hakel is like Har Sinai. Har Sinai, we met the Eibishter. The Aseres HaDibris was the Ikir. The Aseres HaDibris was not the Ikir. The Ikir was that at the moment of Har Sinai, every Yid was in the highest madrega of Nevuah possible. Every Yid, by Har Sinai, including newborns, was in the highest madrega of Nevuah possible. And when it comes to this, all of us are the same. The biggest God will be Yisrael, the simplest person, like it says in the Parshas Nitzavim, which we read this past Shabbos. Rasheichem, Shevteichem, Zikneichem, Sheitreichem, Kelish Yisrael, Tapchem, Neshechem, Gercha, Chete Vitzecha, Shev Memecha. When it comes to Hakel, Kulanu Kecha, all equal. Everybody's the same. Because the Eibush is talking to us on a madrege where there are no differences. The difference is the one person and another is in his mind, is in his heart, and is in his senses. In the neshama, we're all the same. This is Hakel. But we're going away from Shnas Hakel. And after Shnas Hakel is a regular year. And you have to assume that when you go away from Shnas Hakel to a regular year, there's a message in that also. When Shnas Hakel finishes, obviously one message is that in 7 years from today there's going to be Hakel again, and for sure we'll be in the Beis HaMikdash, and the Melech HaMashiach will read from the Sefer Torah Bepashtus. So that's for sure part of how we go away from Hakel. But between Hakel and Hakel there's 7 years. And those 7 years we don't sleep. So what happens when you go away from Hakel? What happens when you finish Hakel? What when you go away from Hakel? And the answer Bepashtus is, and the Rebbe spoke about this Takavayakel in Tafshin Nun Beis. That's what the Rebbe spoke about. When Vayakel and Pekudei are separate, that's what the Rebbe spoke about. That when you go away from Hakel, which focuses how all Yidden are equal, you focus instead on how all Yidden are different. Each one of us has a different purpose. Each one of us has a different avodah. And each one of us has a different ikir. If in Hakel, the idea of Anoshim, Noshim, V'taf underscores, emphasizes how we're all the same, Ish echad b'leiv echad, like in Atan Nitzav Mayim Kulchem Koilish Yisrael. The other side of that is that there's 10 different types of Yidden. There's many different types of Yidden, and every Yid has a different mission. Every Yid has a different shlichus. Every Yid has a different avodah. And it's mistabed. It makes sense that as you go away from Hakel, this is the focus. As we leave Hakel, the focus is we were all together on a madrege where the differences between one Yid and another Yid is de-emphasized. And as we walk away from Hakel, we have to emphasize, so what is my particular job? If there's so many different types of Yidden, when you go away from Hakel, the focus is on, so what do I need to do? What's my specific avodah? And the Rebbe speaks all the time. When he speaks to women, he speaks about the idea of Akeres Habayis. Akeres Habayis means the foundation of the home. We're living in an age, unfortunately, where the winds that are blowing outside have found their way in through the cracks. And you hear sometimes from our women and our girls that they don't like Akeres Habayis. Akeres Habayis is old-fashioned. They want to be different. The Rebbe is very, very up to date. The Rebbe is far ahead of everybody else. The Rebbe weiß Punkt für Tutzcha der Welt. The Rebbe says Akeres Habayis, it's Akeres Habayis. People think that when the Rebbe says to women Akeres Habayis, it's because this is the only thing women can do. But that's not the truth. When the Rebbe says to women Akeres Habayis, it's not because it's the only thing that women can do, because it's a thing that only women can do. Nobody else could be Akeres Habayis. When Torah gave this responsibility to women, it wasn't because they had to give something to the women and they couldn't find anything more important, but because nobody else but Akeres Habayis could be Akeres Habayis. And the meaning of Akeres Habayis is very simple. We are a very old people. We are a very old people. We're 3,300 and close to 50 years old. The math b'diach gedoi weiß ich nicht. Not exactly 3,350 years old, close. And we exist not because of the shul, not because of the Beis HaMedrash, not because of the Rosh Yeshiva, and God's Omamechazai, not because of the Rav. We exist because of the home. Yiddishkeit and the preservation of the Jewish people is the home. If people study the Jewish people, you want to understand what's the secret of the Jewish people, there's a lot of secrets. The people of the book, v'chuli, 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 the secret of the Jewish people is the Jewish family. And the Jewish family is the Jewish mother. The Rebbe said once to a very modern lady that she should understand that the responsibility for her children is hers more than her husband's. So she looks at the Rebbe like ayatachan. So the Rebbe says it's a fact of life. What a mother can do, a father can't. Women have the capacity to take care of a home, of their children, of their husbands, in a way that somebody else cannot. The Eibishter gave this role to women not because there's nothing more important for women to do, but because nobody else could be Akeres Habayis. We exist because we bring Yiddish children into the world. We exist because we raise those children to be different than the outside. They should be Yiddish Kinder. that even if we're living in Chutz La'aretz and in Zman HaGolus and all the Lamas Vestadim, we raise our children. You walk in the street, you see a Jewish child, you say, this is a Yiddish kind, a kosher kind. And this is a responsibility that the Eibishter gave to women because only women can do it. Finished. Only women can do it. A man cannot. You have in Pirkei Avos, just an example. There's unashied examples. There's a Tane, his name is Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya. Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya was a Gadol Hador. He was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. His best friend was Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus. Rabbi ben Hurkanus was about Tshuva. Rabbi ben Hurkanus ran away from his home. He didn't like his family, wasn't Chassidish enough. He ran away from the house and ran to the Beis Medrash. But Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya was a tzaddik. And when the Mishnah describes Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya, it says, Asher Yeladete. You want to know who Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya was? Look at his mother. There's actually a video. A woman walks up to the Rebbe by dollars, which was opened to everybody to see, and she says to the Rebbe, I want to have a son like you. So the Rebbe says, then you'll have to be a mother like my mother. And the Akeres Habayis, as the Rebbe teaches us, was given the responsibility, the Achrayis. And not just the responsibility, and not just the Achrayis, but the trust. The Bitachon, the trust for the most foundational in Yodam and Yiddishkeit, which is in the home. And as we know, it's Rosh Tevis Hachein or Chana. It's connected to the Rebbe's mother. Hadlokas Neidet Shabbos Kedish V'Yom Tif, lighting Shabbos candles. And as I'm sure you're aware, the idea of Shabbos candles is Sholem Bayis. The home should be a peaceful place. Kasher Achilu Shtia, the food should be kosher. And Taras HaMishpacha. I want to tell you that in Tafshin Lamed Hey, in 1975, on Tezayin Tammuz, there was a Fabring. And in that Fabringen, the Rebbe introduced the two Mivtzoyim of Kashas Achilu Shtia and Taras HaMishpacha in one Fabringen. The whole thing is one Sicha, it's 20 minutes. You have to hold her. Come on. Ridiculous. Pick her up and take her in your lap. When that Sicha, you can listen to the tape. The Sicha is edited. It's printed in Likutei Sichos. It's printed in Likutei Sichos and Chelik Yud Gimel and Deis Offer. You can read the whole Sicha. When the Rebbe introduced the Mivtzoyim of Kashrus and Taras HaMishpacha, the Rebbe said the following. I'm paraphrasing. The Rebbe said that he has a kasha. The Rebbe said, I have a question. And this question the Rebbe says, it's a question that's been around for a long time. The question that the Rebbe asked was, the Rebbe said this 50 years ago, 50 years ago, Kemat. How is it? The Rebbe said, I have a kasha. How is it that so many Yidden went away from Yiddishkeit so fast? I want you to think, the Rebbe didn't say these numbers, but I want you to think about these numbers. In the year 1890, that's 130 years ago, in the year 1890, 9 out of 10 Jews in the world was frum. 50 years later, the numbers were reversed. 1940, 9 out of 10 Yidden were not frum. It's staggering. The only unusual characteristic that we experience is that a non-frum Yid is proud to be a Yid. This is a new phenomenon. He heißt nicht frum, he calls himself secular, but don't you call him not a Yid. This is a new phenomenon. So it gives us a chance to the union of Tshuva and the union of Mashiach. The Rebbe said, how did it happen? So many Yidden went away from Yiddishkeit in such a short amount of time. Now there's a lot of good answers. The amount of tzadis Yidden experienced Bechlal, and the last 130 years, what we've been through since 1890 is unimaginable. The number of tzadis that we went through. But the Rebbe asked the question, how did so many Yidden become frei so fast? So frei, so fast. And the Rebbe answered, and please look it up, do not trust me. The Rebbe answered, because there are certain mitzvahs that touch the neshama, not the guf. Certain mitzvahs that touch the neshama. And if chas v'sholem there's a giroyin in these mitzvahs which touch the neshama, so this is how I understand it. If the situation in the world becomes difficult, the neshama doesn't have the fortitude, the strength it needs to deal with those challenges. And the Rebbe brought from Svarim that the two mitzvahs that touch the neshama of a Yid are kashas achil u'shtia and taras ha'mishpacha. And that's why the Rebbe made these mitzvahs. The Rebbe said, I see that if you want to save Jewish people, you have to nourish the Rebbe's solution, the Rebbe's solution to OTD, which you're not allowed to say, is kashrus and taras ha'mishpacha. Is kashrus and taras ha'mishpacha. You can look it up yourself and see the sikha. You can listen to the sikha. You can read the sikha. It's edited and everything. The Rebbe gave these mitzvahs to women. The Eibishter gave these mitzvahs to women. Now the Rebbe made 10 mitzvahs. He included these 3 amongst the 10. Hadlakas near the Shabbos Kedesh v'Yom Tiv, Kashrus achil u'shtia, and taras ha'mishpacha. But then there's a fourth. There's a fourth. And the fourth is chinuch. Chinuch. The Eibishter gave an obligation, right? We all know the story. We can all say we don't remember, but the Eibishter says, I hold you responsible for it. When the Eibishter had to give us the Torah, he says, I'm going to give you the Torah. What's going to happen tomorrow? Mocher, what's going to happen tomorrow? I need a promise that you're going to keep the Torah. So we gave the Eibishter every promise in the world. The Aves, the Tzadikim, the Nevi'im, whatever you want. We promised the Eibishter all the bridges between Brooklyn and Manhattan. You should give us the Torah. He said, no. Until we told the Eibishter, Baneinu Erven Badeinu. Until we told the Eibishter, we're giving you our children. We're giving up the kinder. We must understand, Rabbi Isai, when Yidden told the Eibishter, Baneinu Erven Badeinu, they didn't say, here, take my kids. What does they take my children? We said to the Eibishter, I'm going to give you my children. So when we said to the Eibishter, Baneinu Erven Badeinu, we took the responsibility to raise them. We have to raise our children to be Jews. We have to raise our children to be Chassidim. And we, of course, we raise our children to be different on the street. Absolutely. It's not like America's a nice place, and in America everybody's comfortable. We raise our children to Fanav Asipur. Mit dem Rebbe Nishma said the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab once met a cousin of his. And this cousin was case in an apokadis. I mean, an apokadis is a very high madrege. The Friedrich Rebbe once said, "Nicht von klappen Semichkes und spielen in Karten wird man ein apokadis. Von dem wird man a boer. An apokadis is shona upirish. You understand Yiddish? The Friedrich Rebbe said, you don't become an apokadis by playing with popping sesame seeds and playing cards. That makes you an empty head, a no goodnik, a numbskull. An apokadis is shana, you learned, and pirish. Anyway, so the Rebbe had a cousin, a geis an apokadis. The Rebbe Rashab met his cousin. They had to talk about the different shitas that they had, v'chuli v'chuli. And when they separated, each one commented about the other. Each one commented about the other. They asked the Rebbe Rashab what he thought of his cousin. So the Rebbe Rashab said, if my cousin would stand by Kriyas Yamsuf and watch the sea split, he would say that the wind is blowing. And they asked the Rebbe Rashab, that's the cousin, what do you say about your cousin, the Lubavitch Rebbe, the Rebbe Nishma Seiden? So he answered, Yoideya es ha'olam u'mechavein limited boy. The Rebbe Rashab is not living in an ivory tower. He's not a bottleneck. He knows exactly what's going on. He understands the world exactly, with all the new technologies and all the new opportunities and all the naya zachen. U'mechavein limited boy. His kavanah is to defy it all, to change it, to make it the Eibishter's. This is chinuch, Rabbi Isai. The Eibishter gave this mitzvah to women, to mechanech our children. And we're mechanech our children to be different and to be proud. B'simcha u'b'ahava. This is on us. This is on us. And as we go away from Hakel, where we focus how we're all the same, and we start to focus on what's distinct for each of us, this is what is distinct for Neshey Chabad. In Tafshin and Aleph, in the Sikha that the Rebbe spoke here, Tafshin and Aleph is 32 years ago. The Rebbe spoke to the Neshey Chabad. The Rebbe spoke about a variety of different things. And one of the things the Rebbe spoke about is Ani ledoidi v'doidi li. Ani ledoidi v'doidi li. And the Rebbe taich wasn't the taich ledoidi. Ledoidi means the Eibishter. Ani means the person. Doidi means the Eibishter. And by the way, the Rebbe mentioned that Chagav, that Meida Ani lefanecha belachai v'kayim shechazate bin ishmasi Rabbi Munasecha. So the beginning of Meida Ani is Ani ledoidi, Meida Ani lefanecha, and the end of Ani ledoidi, when you say to Meida Ani, when you say to the Eibishter Rabbi Munasecha, I trust you, this is v'doidi li. So the Rebbe said, what is the taich of the word doidi? What is the meaning of the word? And the meaning of the word doidi is ahava. Pashat lipshaft, loves. The Eibishter loves us and we love the Eibishter. Like you have in Pashat Kishaveh, Hashem ha'amalta, Hashem ha'mircha. And either doidi means the Eibishter loves us. And doidi li means we have a relationship with this Eibishter loves us. Our connection to the Eibishter is ahava. And the ahava that the Eibishter v'esach fanen ayem yem, right? There's a number of ayem yems. The Teierkeit von Aguf von Ayiden, the word that's brought, that Ohev Masha, somebody once asked, which is greater, Avas Hashem or Avas Yisrael? And the answer that was given is, Avas Yisrael is greater than Avas Hashem, because Ohev Masha Ohev Ohev. When you love a fellow Jew, you love the Eibishter, you're loving he who the Eibishter loves. Ani ledoidi v'doidi li is the concept of ahava, of libhabim. The Eibishter loves us and we love the Eibishter. And the way the Rebbe explains it in the Sikha is that this ahava is a very high idea, it's a very lofty idea. But this ahava comes down to a very basic level, to an actionable level, to a practical level. If I may say this in other words, today happens to be Tuesday. Today happens to be Tuesday. And Tuesday is Huch Baboy Ki Tov. Everybody knows. Tuesday Hashem said Ki Tov twice. So if you're Lubavitch, you know that Ki Tov twice is Tev LaShamayim and Tev LaBriyas. Tev LaShamayim means it's good for Shamayim, and Tev LaBriyas means it's good for people. So we learn in the Rebbe Sichos and in Chassidus, what does it mean Tev LaShamayim, Tev LaBriyas? What is the proof that a person is serving the Eibishter correctly? That he has Avas Yisrael. What is the proof that a person is loving another Yid correctly? That it's connected to his relationship with the Eibishter. Tev LaShamayim v'Tev LaBriyas. The proof that the Shamayim is a real Shamayim is Briyas. The proof that the Briyas is a real Briyas is Shamayim. In other words, the idea of the relationship between the Yid and the Eibishter is that we're able to connect the highest levels of the heaven with the most basic levels of the earth. It shows itself in our physical lives, and it connects our physical lives to the spiritual lives, v'chulu v'chulu, and so forth and so on. So I guess I'm going to finish by saying that just like mitzvahs, Yiddishkeit revolves around mitzvahs. And the reason Yiddishkeit revolves around mitzvahs is because mitzvahs are physical things. They're actionable, they're low, they're on the physical level. But the truth of the matter is, Yiddishkeit is about physical mitzvahs, because a physical action takes from the deepest levels of a person's neshama. Chayochel, the same is true with Kapimala the Meibish. The deepest in Yonim is when it comes into the physical world. So the Meibish bench us all With a ksiva chasima toiva, an azisa yar, a gringe yar, a tzlocha dike yar, a benchte yar, all of the things. The Malaya Kadosh Baruch Hu Mishalas Levavenu L'Teva V'Levracha. Teva Nira V'Nigle, Begashmi es Kipshute, including the Blacha Ikris, von der Gula Amitis Vashlema, dem Mashiach Zetkein. The Eibishter Zalman Benchim is on sich zed mit den Reben. Bepashtes. Und was haben die Gula Amitis Vashlema, who you gonna lay, you take it from a yad.